Hello, my humanoids. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing another NaNoWriMo inspired video. And the reason I am making this video is because I have been spending a lot of time on YouTube watching others talk about getting ready for NaNoWriMo because it is right around the corner. And I feel like for a first timer, it may kind of scare you and make you doubt whether you want to participate in it because you have people talking about get those sprints done, get in those write-ins, get prepared, draft that novel, people. Oh, here is a survival guide to everything you will need during NaNoWriMo. And I feel like if I would have seen these the first year I participated, I may not have. Now, of course, not everybody is going to think this way, but I thought I would kind of share with you my tips and tricks for getting ready for NaNoWriMo. Now, one thing that I hear a lot of people talk about is drafting your book before getting into NaNoWriMo. It's a great way to start kind of refining your writing skills, and that way when you go into NaNoWriMo, you're not just staring at a blank space. Well, I don't think it's necessary to draft. Obviously, if you personally love to know exactly what you're getting into and you're very organized and that's how you write the best, by all means, of course, draft your novel beforehand. This is not a rule book. These are just things that I find beneficial for how I write. And I'm thinking there are people out there who are the same as I am in this aspect. To get inspiration for what to write for NaNoWriMo, I would do things like listen to your favorite song and see if there's a way that you could broaden the themes of that song into a story for a novel. Or even like, let's say there's a movie that you like where two characters did not end up together and you wish they would have. Well, then you can use those two characters as a basis of your story. What would their lives have been like if they did get together? Would their characteristics change from the movie you like? I think these are great places to pull inspiration for writing. Now, obviously, you don't want to write a book that's word for word of another book or another movie, but people who say that books are not based on something else are full of it. Every piece of art, every song, every movie, every book was inspired by something else. It's just how it is. Nothing you write, unless you do it intentionally, is going to be the exact same as somebody else. You are going to pull from your experiences. So don't worry about what your idea is. That's simple and it's not as hard as you may think it is. Now, the one thing that I do think is very beneficial for you going into writing a book, doesn't even matter if it's for NaNoWriMo, but just in general, is you want to know the characters like the back of your hand and you want them to be believable. Now, I have here a document called How to Write Believable Characters. I did get this idea almost in full from another YouTuber. Her name is Jenna Moresi. I will link her video down below because I'm basically using everything that she talks about in her video. And I did use this formula last year for the book I wrote for NaNoWriMo, and I will show you the process. So as you can see here, step one says there are four crucial things about your character that you need to know: their role in the story, their motivation to fulfill that role, life experience, and strength and weaknesses. Now, all of these points must somehow interact with one another. If they all connect in some way, your character will be complex and come across as a real person. I like how I have role, like dinner roll, instead of like the role in the story. Spelling, Kiriana, spelling. So here we have their role in the story. Is this character a love interest? Is it a comic relief? What role are they playing in your world? Now, this isn't just about are they the protagonist or the antagonist. You need to know exactly why they are in your story, okay? Not just what like character they are. You need to know what they are doing in your story. Now, character motivation. What drives your character to do what they do? Is it love, grief, revenge, so on and so forth? So, what is making them this role? So, if they're the love interest, well, then obviously love is their motivation. So, if you're writing a romance, it is very crucial to know okay, my role is I am the love interest, and what is driving me is the love for this person. Okay. We get down here to life experience. Our past and the things we go through shape who we become as people. It dictates our actions and choices in life. This should be the most detailed part of the four. I love how there's so many grammar and spelling errors in this sheet that I'm showing you, but we're just going to pretend like they're not there. Life experience really does form who we are. As you grow and you go through things, you change and your outlook on life becomes different and the way that you respond to certain things becomes different. And even though you are probably never going to use all that you write about your character in a draft in your book, you need to know that as the author, because when you're writing a situation, you want to know exactly how your character is going to react to that situation without having to stop and think, okay, well, how would they act in this? Because I would act this way, but they wouldn't. You want to know your characters like the back of your hand, because if you know them as if they're your real friends, writing will be a lot easier, drafted or not. Now, strengths and weaknesses, you only choose three strengths and three weaknesses, and you want to choose what's the most prominent in your character. Now, Jenna Moresi goes into a lot of detail about the strengths and weaknesses and why she chooses three. But I think that you don't want to overwhelm yourself, and you can dig deep into all kinds of people, but you need to show what their top three are, because what is ever more prominent in your character is what they're going to use in certain situations in your story. So now here's an example of these steps. And again, I got this idea from Jenna Moresi. So I made this up. This is not the book I am writing. This isn't a character in a book I've written. This is literally made up on like a whim. So my character name, Anna Reinhard. What is her role? Well, she is a caretaker. And you see here I have why. Why plays a big role here. And this is about all of these interacting with each other to make a complex and real character. So we'll get to the why later. So we have motivation, loneliness, her life experience, grew up as an only child, parents died when she was young, mistreated by past relationships, grandmother always taught her to be loving, could always express herself on paper. Our strengths, she is strong willed, compassionate, humble, and her weaknesses, stubborn, selfish, and gullible. So now I'm going to show you how all of these need to intertwine to make a very complex and well rounded character. So her role is caretaker. Well, why is she a caretaker? Well, she grew up as an only child and her parents died young, so she knows what it's like to be alone, and she's always been very mature for her age. And because she hasn't been treated well in past relationships, she feels for people. She knows what it feels like to be alone. She knows what it feels like to, not feel loved. And she had someone in her life who showed her lots of love and that you're supposed to give it back to other people. So here you can say that her caretaker role comes from her life experience, and it also can come from her strengths because she is compassionate. Now, the motivation, why is she a caretaker? Well, her loneliness. Why is she lonely? She was an only child. Her parents died when she was young. She doesn't have really good luck in relationships, so she gets really lonely. And because she has experienced all these things, she is lonely and she feels for other people. So you can already see that we're intertwining all of these things together. Now, here we have her strengths. She's strong willed, compassionate, and humble. Well, why is she strong willed? Well, maybe she's strong willed because her parents died young and she was an only child, so she had to learn to get up and face life even though she was alone. She's compassionate because she had a grandmother who was very loving and taught her to be loving. And she's humble. Why is she humble? Well, maybe it's because she hasn't had a lot, so she really appreciates the small things in life. So you can see we're always going back to certain things in the story. Her weaknesses, she's stubborn. Why is she stubborn? Well, she was an only child and she had to grow up really fast because her parents died when she was young. So she's always kind of had to take care of herself, and she hasn't always had people there to battle her, so she just becomes really stubborn in her beliefs. She's selfless. Well, why is she selfless? Because she's had a really bad past, and she doesn't want anyone to feel the way that she's felt in life. So she's very selfless. And this can be a weakness because if you don't ever put yourself first, you can find yourself in really bad situations. And gullible, well, maybe she's gullible because she didn't have her parents around to teach her things. And because she's compassionate, and she wants to see the best in people, she tends to be gullible because she sees the good in people and doesn't want to believe they're bad. So I know I explained this pretty quickly, but everything needs to intertwine with each other for the character, like I said, to be well rounded, to be complex, to come off as a real person. You never want your character to come off as perfect. You know, this is one thing that has always kind of upset me in maybe like romance or like YA romances, because the guy always comes off as this very statuesque, perfect person who's just handsome beyond all belief. And then the heroine is like a normal Jane who's like really ugly, or just maybe isn't ugly, but she thinks that she's ugly and doesn't understand why everybody has a crush on her. It can get very annoying. Now, to show you kind of how I use this formula in my book that I wrote last year, let me just go ahead and pull that document up here. So here we have one of my characters from my book that I wrote last year. Ignore this title because that is no longer the title. I don't know what I'm going to call my book. So here we have my main character, Evelyn Lily Davis. And her birthday is here. I wrote down her physical appearance because I need to know what she looks like. And at some point, I'm probably going to tell you what she looks like, but probably not in this detail. So I have her role. She's the protagonist, she's the hero. Her life experience. I did switch this formula up a little bit last year. I have her parents died in a car accident. Cousin who took her in was emotionally abusive, never really dated in high school, was bullied in school, valedictorian of her graduating class, moved away to start over in a place no one would know her, ended up in an abusive relationship. And then I have her strengths and weaknesses. She's forgiving, patient, kind hearted. Her weaknesses: doesn't think before speaking, overthinks, doesn't let people in. And then I have her personality and backstory. So I wrote a whole paragraph of what she's like, who her parents were, things like that. I really feel like that is the most crucial part of writing a book, is knowing your characters like the back of your hand. You want to know everything about them. Even when it comes to their looks, you want to know every nook and cranny of their face, of their body, because even if you don't actually put that in words in the book that you're writing, you need to know that. And the more you know about your character, the more they're going to come across on the page as realistic to your reader. And I feel like this is where people don't spend enough time in books. I feel like because I personally am a character reader, I want to care about what's happening with the characters. I'm not really big on the real descriptive scenery moments or all the backstory on characters. If I care about them as people, I'm going to care about what's happening to them in the story. So I feel like the description should go more into who the characters are than where the characters are in the story, if that makes any sense. So I feel like your time, if you're going to be doing anything before NaNoWriMo, should be spent drafting out your characters. The other tip that I have to give you is don't overwhelm yourself. NaNoWriMo is supposed to be a fun time. It's a way to get you motivated and set you goals to get that story out of you that you've been holding in. Or maybe you're somebody who has always liked to write but never thought about writing a book and you want to try. Don't let the expectations overwhelm you. Take your time, enjoy this. This is just a way to keep you motivated, because when you're writing something, you can get lazy. I am so guilty of this. The story that I wrote, this is what I wrote last year for NaNoWriMo. This story right here took me almost 5 years to write, because I would get lazy and I would be like, oh, I'd write a chapter and then I would never pick it up again. And so I needed something to discipline myself, and being able to participate in NaNoWriMo doesn't only give you discipline, but it lets you communicate with other writers who you can get beneficial information from, and you can participate in write-ins, and you can see how other people are doing and hear experiences. So these are my tips and tricks for you. I hope that it was somewhat helpful. I hope that I am getting you excited for NaNoWriMo. I definitely am. I am probably going to vlog during NaNoWriMo month. I may not do one every day. I think I'll do weekly videos and just kind of wrap up the week as the month goes by. And also, I think before, like maybe a week before or a couple days before NaNoWriMo starts, I will do a live, like Google Live write-in, where I actually do draft the characters for the story I'll be doing in this format for you guys. And I do have a couple spooky story times on the way this month as well. So be on the lookout for that. I appreciate you guys watching and following me. If you want more updates and more videos like this, go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. All my information for Instagram and Twitter is on my channel, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.